That sucks. That's so annoying. All right. What's up, people? Today's episode, I'm talking about movies, a couple horror or horror-esque movies I watched this summer that I really enjoyed. Spoiler alert! I got spoiler alerts. I'm going to talk about things that happen in the movies. I do leave like a little bit left, but I do talk quite a bit. So if you haven't seen these movies and you want to, then maybe watch after you see them. The movies are Alien Romulus and Speak No Evil. Alien Romulus, Speak No Evil. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Yeah, let's talk about what it was like watching them, like why I enjoyed them so much. Yeah, it's basically I just kind of go through them, what I think makes a good movie, what I think can make a decent horror movie. And here's the thing, I don't even love horror, but I love both of these movies. And that's what I want to talk about. So, hey, listen, subscribe. Subscribe on Spotify. Subscribe on Apple. Subscribe on YouTube. Especially YouTube. I need to make the dollar bills without having to actually advertise stuff. Or not. I don't really care. I'm just saying subscribe because I want to see on the YouTube video if it says, if sometimes when on other videos, like the subscribe has this little colorful circle. Also, I don't know what happened. The video feed's going to cut out about halfway into this thing. So apologies. If you're listening on Spotify, you don't care. If you're on YouTube, you might care. So anyway, check it out. And yeah, thanks again for listening. Love you. Peace. All right. I think we're good. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Glad to have you here. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. This is episode 8. We're going to talk about a couple movies that I've seen recently. In my least favorite genre, I mean, maybe there's like a lot of genres. I don't really like Westerns. But they would fall into the horror category. I don't know if there's a lot of you that like horror. I don't particularly love horror. I would say my top genres for movies would be sci-fi. For sure, sci-fi is at the top, always at the top. Always. Sci-fi is always at the top. The next would be probably... Dang, I don't actually have like a ranking for my genres. It's definitely sci-fi. And then, I love a good rom-com. I love a good dramatic movie. I love a good thriller, but it's always sci-fi at the top. And in sci-fi, you can kind of have those interpersonal genres mixed in, like drama or comedy, but it's always sci-fi. Even compared to fantasy, like I would pick sci-fi. And good sci-fi, do you call it high sci-fi? Like where it's like, there's sci-fi where it's like, it's us today, but there's one thing different, an alien shows up. And there's like higher sci-fi, which is like we're leaving Earth, we're going out into space, we're doing things in space, and that would be the sci-fi that I would point towards. I'm not really pointing. I'm pointing my body towards it. Yeah, so anyway, and then down near the bottom would be horror. And specifically, I don't love supernatural horror. It's just kind of a scary... It's just something that I don't find particularly enjoyable to expose myself to. It could be kind of horror could be kind of comparable to amusement park rides where I have to be really feeling it to do it. I have to like have a lot of like lead up and preparation. Like I'm not just going to sit down with nothing to do and pick a horror movie I haven't seen and turn all the lights off. And part of the reason is my imagination is way too crazy. Like there's part of my brain, maybe it's the conspiracy theorist part of my brain that just says like, okay, here's an example for you of how my brain operates. I'm 95% sure the Earth is round, but I've never been to space and seen the curvature of the Earth from space. And so because of that, I'm trusting other people's opinions to say like, no, the Earth is round. When you're in a gravityless entity like space, it results in a spherical shape to objects. You can't really just have a flat disc floating out there. But at the end of the day, there's 5% of my brain And maybe that's high. Like maybe you'd be like, whoa, you think 5% the earth is flat? No, I don't think the earth is flat. I don't even 5% think it's flat. I 5% don't know that it's round. That's like the difference. So when it comes to supernatural horror movies, I can get kind of freaked out because there was one time when I was working, like I was going to college and I was working at the campus doing the security stuff. And I played like a horror game. Yeah, a horror game with some friends with all these jump scares. And then you end up being like basically the last person awake in the building at 2 a.m. and you're doing rounds and you have to go in the basement and there's no dorms in the basement. You have to go through the basement and go up this emergency stairwell. And after playing this horror game, you just feel like something is behind you following. It's the freakiest thing. Anyway, so my imagination can get the best of me with this stuff. And when it comes to horror, it can kind of freak me out, supernatural horror specifically. And then kind of non-supernatural horror is kind of like, well, what? It's like, well, we're just going to have like, insane people doing awful things to other people. I just don't want to expose myself to that. Now you're probably wondering, well, then Gordo, why'd you watch these movies? What are the movies I watched? So I watched these two movies that could fall into the horror movie category. One, the first one I'll talk about is Alien Romulus. And why did I watch Alien Romulus? One, sci-fi. So that's like a big thing. If there's like a horror movie that's sci-fi, I'm going to give it a shot. Two, the Alien franchise is like a huge, maybe not influence in my life. It's not a huge influence, but it is like, I guess it is. It's like a huge thing for me and my family. Like I remember watching all the Alien movies with my dad when we were kids. We go to Rogers Video, get 7 movies for $7 for 7 days. And, we at one point we worked through the Alien movies and I was like, my favorite is Alien 3. My brother's like, my favorite is Aliens. And at the time I was like, man, you're so dumb. But then you you find out Alien 3 is a pretty bad movie and the CGI is like pretty bad. And there's all these issues and Aliens is like an amazing movie. One of the most highest regarded sci-fi movies of all time. So I guess he was on to something. But hey, I mean, his favorite Star Wars movie was Return of the Jedi, and mine was Empire Strikes Back. So, who really won? And so, anytime an Alien movie comes out, there's this huge sentimental piece. Like Prometheus came out. I watched that with my dad. I would have been honestly like a year, maybe less, before he passed away, which was pretty cool. And then Alien Covenant, which, mind you, was not necessarily a great movie, unfortunately. And I saw it with my brother, and that was like really nice. And I think I watched, I remember watching, I think we watched all the previous movies leading up to Alien Covenant, including Resurrection, which is a grind. Alien Resurrection is a lot. It's not very good. Anyway, and then Alien Romulus is coming out, and it was made by the dude that made Don't Breathe, which I guess also is a horror, maybe more thriller, that I watched in college with friends. We went to this cheap theater, a couple like in Chilliwack, and it was this really fun experience because there's all these jump scares in it, and you're there with a bunch of friends. Like, it was just super fun. And I was like, okay, well, that dude's a good director from a thriller standpoint. The first Alien movie is kind of this, actually I just found out recently, there's like almost no screen time of the alien, of the xenomorph in the first Alien. It's like 5 minutes. You get to see him. That's it. And anyway, and then this one looked like it was trending back towards that feel of the first Alien movie. And I was like, okay, I got to go watch this. So I watched it by myself, because also, if you don't watch movies by yourself, just go try it sometime. Just pick a movie and just be like, I'm going to go watch a movie by myself. Anyway, and this movie like completely blew my expectations out of the water. It was probably, I mean, I'm going to like even talk about this other movie later in this episode, but it was just like an excellent movie and an excellent viewing experience in the theater, and a really good mix of practical effects with CGI. And it was like very, very fun to watch. And I saw it in theaters twice, because if a movie is like really good, sometimes you gotta go see it again in the theater, because you can't see in the theater later. Like once it's done, it's usually done. And so I went with a friend to see it a second time, and it just completely exceeded my expectations, like both times. The CGI was good. The setting and the ethos of the setting was amazing. Like they were on this what it was like a different planet, but it was oh, what do you call it? It wasn't. It was kind of colonized, but it was kind of like a mining camp on this planet, and they never get sunlight, and it's like dirty and gross. And it was in the timeline period. It was found between the first Alien movie and the second one, Aliens, and they really brought back that tactile analog, like big buttons, click click. They had computer displays that were like 120p. I don't even know if that's a thing, but it was just like very, rounded bubble like monitors. It was super good. Just such a good environment they set up for this movie. And then this planet had these really beautiful rings, like very light blue, white kind of rings. And then basically the movie takes place on what's it called? Like a space station, an abandoned space station. And then you combine like the setting, the acting was super good. And then you combine that with great practical effects, great CGI, and then it had great music and great cinematography. Like it was like every part of this movie like checked the box. There's one part early in the movie when they're entering this abandoned space station, and the space station has a gravity generator, so it turns on and off. And so there's one point where it's off, and they're entering the space station, and as they kind of are crawling through a vent, and they exit a vent into this giant room with no gravity, and the camera, the viewpoint, kind of, how did it work? It basically like followed them, and like when there's no gravity, normally the camera perspective is still going to look at the characters in the setting from like a vertical up and down gravity setting. But what they did is it started it like off kilter, and then it kind of followed them and rotated, but then it kept rotating past like that main axis where I was watching this movie, and it wasn't even in IMAX or it wasn't 3D. It was just a normal theater. And there's a point where I was watching the screen, and I kind of had this feeling like I was like floating in no gravity. It was the craziest thing. I've never, ever had that happen in a movie before. And I saw it twice, and it happened both times in that scene. They didn't like do that multiple times, but it was just like this one. It was this weird thing where you just feel for a second like you're floating because they're using the camera perspective to do that. Genius. I've never experienced that before in a movie. And then they go on, and it's basically like a really solid slow buildup to get to the xenomorph. They have like a great face hugger scene. Again, really like tactile, like practical effects of this face hugger trying to impregnate one of the characters. It was just like, and there's something about practical effects that make something feel more real than CGI. I mean, CGI, when it's done really good, it can do that, but there's just something about practical. When you do practical well, it's like you kind of feel when you're viewing it like this is really happening. And they just did a really good amount of practical effects. There's CGI. CGI is great. CGI is fine, but I think it's almost like less is more these days, and CGI doesn't age super well. I don't think it ages as well as practical effects. And so if you can kind of like, I don't want to say like minimize it, but if you can limit it and weave it in with practical effects, I think it helps movies last longer. Anyway, and they go through, I'm not going to do a whole synopsis, but they basically go through, one of the characters gets impregnated, the xenomorph comes out, and then they basically find multiple xenomorphs. One of the characters ends up being an android, and his acting was really good. He went from an American accent and being a simple-minded android to getting this upgrade. And when he got this upgrade, he acquired a British accent, and all of his mechanics were heightened. There's one scene where a character's impregnated, and he is like, we have to basically destroy that person, or else like we're all gonna die from what's gonna come out. And so he's chasing after them, and they get behind this huge door. And again, it was like, what was the perspective? I think it was he's in this kind of hallway, this tubular hallway, and the camera's on his face, and it's his upper body. It's not on his face. It's on his like upper torso. And there's like this combo of music and then lighting. He was kind of like backlit and front lit, but just like he wasn't like just a silhouette, but he was kind of silhouetted with lights in the outside of the hallway. And there's like red like alarm lights going off, and the camera just slowly zooming in. That was just like, I was like, man, this is so enjoyable to have someone putting this together with all of the, like, because when it comes to a movie, when it comes to like this kind of stuff, you have to have a good story. There's kind of like minimal parts to play. You have to have a good story, and you have to have the technical effects, the technical production of a movie also all good. Like basically you have to have, at minimum, you need to have all these other, you have to have the tangible and intangible things, not detracting from the experience, because sometimes there's great effects, great production quality, and the story sucks. Or there's a great story, but the production sucks. And you need minimum neither of them to suck. They don't both have to be like Oscar winning effects for this stuff, but they minimum have to not suck. And what was great about this movie was the story was like decent. It wasn't anything revolutionary because it basically was just another original Alien movie, but it was done today after Alien Covenant. It was like kind of back to its roots. It didn't try to solve all the questions in this universe that people have been wondering about for decades at this point. And the production quality was just like, again, was it the best movie ever made? No. Was it a really well done technical movie? Yes. Cinematography, practical effects, music, acting. And this is what I love too, was they threw back to other movies in the series directly. They had a cameo from previous movies that was like, this is amazing. And they had quotes from the movie, from previous movies as well, which was like, like this is a thing. When there's a fan base for a certain movie like type or series, you have to respect the audience. And so what does that mean? That means at minimum, you can't give them, when you're creating a movie, you have to at least not have crappy story and production quality. You have to not disrespect what makes them fans, which is previous entities in the series. And then you have to give them something new that honors like the previous stuff. And that's a hard thing to balance. Star Wars has had a hard time balancing that because they want to do something new, but then fans are like, we hate this. This is not, and it always happens. I mean, George Lucas's like prequels, people hated. They're like, Anakin is dumb. These movies suck. The CGI sucks. We know he hates sand. This is cringy. And then sometimes these things age better than when they first come out. I think when people are like, I was a bit too judgmental towards that movie or those movies, they kind of chill out a little bit and you can kind of appreciate what happened. I don't know if that'll happen with like the Star Wars sequels from 2015, 2017. But and here's a difference between the prequels and the sequels. When you watch the prequels back to back and you see this progression of this kid Anakin to Darth Vader, amazing. It's like when you think about what causes that, how the Emperor Palpatine is manipulated, like, and again, when you see it, actually, it's probably equally like setting up Darth Vader and setting up Emperor Palpatine is like amazing. The sequels, I mean, issue 1 compared to the prequels, George Lucas show ran the prequels. He directed all of them. He had creative control. Issue with the sequels, they didn't have someone show running like Kevin Feige does for Marvel. And so it kind of fell apart because it was all this disjointed stuff. We're bringing Rose in. This character Rose is like, I'm just going to hang back from the adventure guys. And then Rise of Skywalker, they bring Palpatine back. It's just like a gong show. Anyway, Alien Romulus is not trying to be a trilogy. It's just a really great movie in the series. It 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 makes you jump. Like there are several points in both movies I jumped um, multiple times, and they weren't all at the same point. Like in the second time I watched it, there was one specific jump scare where I was like, okay, watch out for that Gordo. You know it's coming. I still jumped at it. And there were other points that made me jump compared to the first one. And I was like, how good a movie is that I could see a movie within like twice in a week? Was it a week or 2 weeks? Anyway, I can see a movie twice, pretty close to itself, and it can make me jump from new places the second time I watch it. It's just super good. Yeah, and the main actress that was like the lead for the movie, again, I mean, and here's like something too. I don't love like forcing. I just want to watch good movies and good TV shows. And sometimes you have great male leads and sometimes you have great female leads. And I don't love forcing representation because there's only so many leading parts in a movie. There's only like one or two. And I think it's like if you craft a great story around a specific character who happens to be a woman, then that's amazing. And that's something the Alien franchise is super revolutionary and good for. Like 1979, Sigourney Weaver becomes the main character of Alien and goes on to be this like super main character in Aliens. And basically the whole series, like in the first 4 movies, she's the main character. And then when it came to Prometheus, it was Noomi Rapace was the main character. Alien Covenant. People say David's the main character, which is like, I can see how you can get there. But for those individual movies, the main characters were women. I don't even know the actress that did Alien Covenant. I've only seen that movie once. I don't even know this lady. I don't even know her name. She's like pretty young, but she did like such an amazing job. There's one point where she's lifting like an elevator door gate, and she's got this giant gun, and she's got a t-shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and the air is blowing at her. That I'm like, man, you look just like Sigourney Weaver looked in Aliens. Like again, this is a crazy throwback. That it's like you're not trying to put down Sigourney Weaver. You're not trying to put down the other movies. You're not even trying to outdo them. You're trying to like respectfully do a new iteration with, like 30, 40 years later. And just like very well done. There's another like gravity-less scene, which was kind of a twist on a non-gravity thing that I haven't really seen in a movie before. It was super good. And yeah, the ending of the movie just kind of was really satisfying. And you just are continuously wondering, are they going to get out of this? Because there are like thrillers and horrors these days where the main characters don't win or get out. You just don't know. And I'll leave it. You can watch for yourself and see how. Maybe I just said I don't even know. But it was just super entertaining. It was probably. I had a lot of fun at Deadpool and Wolverine in the summer, but Alien Romulus was possibly more enjoyable. And I mean, to be fair to Deadpool, I'm very sentimental about the Alien franchise. If you're not sentimental or you haven't seen the other ones in the series, you might not care about it as much as I did. But even if you're like, hey, I like movies, I'm looking for good movies to watch, I'm okay with watching old movies from the 70s and 80s. It is pretty cool to watch through all the different iterations. This would be the 7th Alien movie. Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection, Prometheus, Alien Covenant, and then this one. And what's great is I think if you haven't seen those movies, to watch this one, having not seen any of them, I think is still a worthwhile venture. So definitely check it out. I think I would probably, here's the thing. When it comes to rating books and movies, I'm a pretty generous like rater because again, I mean, books are just basically stories, but it's like, is the story decent? Is the production decent? And then it's like, if those are both minimum, like decent, it's going to be a 7 out of 10 for me. Goodreads is out 5, but whatever. IMDb's out 10. And then if either of those are like really good, that's probably going to be an 8 out of 10. If they're both really good, and I would say both story and production were really good, then it's like 9 out of 10. 10 out of 10 is probably going to be one of my top favorite movies of all time, which I don't think I would put this, but it's definitely one of the top movies of the year for sure. Like it's just everything. This is what gets me so frustrated about sci-fi and the Academy Awards not really respecting sci-fi is I think sci-fi just and maybe it's just for me, but sci-fi can just captivate your imagination in ways that just stories about humans and dramas can't. Like there's something otherworldly that is so inspirational about sci-fi that we just don't get, I think, with just regular movies. And yeah, this like definitely did it. Even like they're on this thing called Jackson Star, this colony. They're on a mining colony on another planet. And you just think like, where is that? How did they get there? What's the infrastructure of humanity that they were able to colonize a mining colony on another planet or a moon around a star, whatever the heck they're on? They just like, and this is the thing. This is the hard thing about series of sci-fi movies is the first one can be so good because it gives you a little glimpse into a universe. And the struggle is, how do we continue peering through this window and seeing more of the picture satisfyingly? You know, it's like I want to do a hike. I want to see the view at the end, and I want to be in awe the whole time. And you get like a third or halfway up the hike, and you turn around and there's like a little bit of a viewpoint. You're like, wow, this is really pretty. It must be beautiful from up there. And if you finish the hike and you're like, oh, the viewpoint was actually better from down there than from up here. It's like, this is in the way, or this is not it's not really that awesome. That's kind of the issue with like sci-fi movie series, is you get this first one that's like, whoa, that is just such an amazing thing. And you have to be able to continue it. And usually you have to continue it with more surprises and more at stake and more questioning, like, holy, are they going to get out of this? Anyway, it kind of had all those aspects. Super, super good. The next movie I saw, the next horror movie, actually I might have seen 3 this summer, but the other one wasn't that great, so I won't talk about that. The other one that I really enjoyed was called Speak No Evil, James McAvoy. And is typically those aren't movies. It's by like the company called Blumhouse. Typically that's not a movie I'm going to go see. But I love James McAvoy. I loved him in Split. And I love him in a lot of things I've seen him in. You know, X-Men. And he's got like a bit of a crooked mouth. And I think because Split was such an enjoyable like movie experience, I was like, okay, he's doing like another like intense thriller. And I asked my buddy if he wanted to go see it, and he wanted to go see it. And we're making jokes like, man, I just can't wait to see James McAvoy like kill some people. This is gonna be so fun. And man, so we got to the movie, and it starts out in Italy, and there's 2 families, each with 1 kid, and they kind of see each other. James McAvoy, he's like, you know, they're at this hotel, and James McAvoy is just this really cringy, obnoxious person. He's like, hey, using that chair, and he drags it while it's squealing the whole time on the ground. He like jumps in the pool doing a giant, huge front flip, like just so annoying and so like unabashedly obnoxious. And him and his wife, you know, they get to know this other couple, and they're like, oh, you should come like see our place in the West Country. We live on this farm. And they build this rapport with this other couple. This other couple's like kind of struggling. They're struggling romantically. They're struggling to enjoy life. They're both kind of down in the dumps because their jobs didn't work out. And then the husband wants to go see, James McAvoy and his wife and their family at the West Country. And the wife is like, let's do it. It'll probably be good for you. And they go there. And it's like a pretty cool, quaint, like farm, kind of like old and dingy, but you're like, oh, but it is kind of quaint and whatever too. And like, let me tell you, because the trailer shows you they're going to try to kill them. That like James McAvoy's not a good dude. They're gonna, so you like know what's coming. The lead up to that conflict really coming to a head probably took how long? I want to say like 80% of the movie. You're not sure it's gonna happen, and you just slowly get just like there's more and more weird things. Like there's weird things about their relationship with their son, like James McAvoy and his wife. And there's weird things about their home. And there's weird things about their personalities. And you're just like put off. And you're like, man, these people should leave. Why are they not leaving? And but then there's like endearing things about them and challenging things. Like they challenge certain aspects in these people's lives, and they're just like pushing them and challenging them in like good ways. And so they're like, oh, they want to stay and hang out with them more, even though they're kind of cringy and obnoxious. James McAvoy is just he's like so hilariously, enjoyably like cringy sometimes, but his cringiness is like the type of person he's portraying. And it's really enjoyable to see someone. It's always really enjoyable to see someone intentionally portray someone like socially uncomfortable. That's how I would put it. When you're kind of sitting there and you're like, oh, if I was in that scenario with James McAvoy, like saying that or doing that, you feel that social discomfort. And that's what was so good about the first, that whole lead up, was there's all this social discomfort, and this other couple will be more normal, and you can identify with them, and then you can't identify with James McAvoy and his wife, and they're going to try to just kill this other couple. And that's what's like, you're kind of like, why are they not leaving? But then there's something like endearing about the socially discomfort people that you're like, oh, it just goes just it's like one slow step at a time. And again, cinematography, great. Sound engineering, I don't think there's any music in this whole movie. This was a crazy thing. There was music that the main characters were listening to in the movie, but there was not like background music, or at least not most of the time. And I think that kind of helped imprint the social discomfort, because you're just like watching this movie, and something is said or done that is making other people, that's creating this social discomfort, and you're just in it with the characters. There's no music to break it up. There's no like quick changes. Like you're just seeing it on their faces. You're seeing this kind of bake into them, this social discomfort, and you're feeling it. And then there's one scene where the two husbands like go out to go hunting. Coffee time. Woo! Coffee time. I never used to drink coffee, but I'm a big coffee guy now. And they go hunting, and the American husband, Ben, he is trying to shoot a fox in the field, doesn't take the shot. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I can't remember James McAvoy's character. Was it Andy? I can't remember. And James McAvoy says, no, it's okay. For me, it's more about the hunt. It's like more about trying to get them on the line, trying to lure them into a place where you can get them. And this is the crazy thing, is I think if they hadn't revealed in the trailer that they were going to try to kill this couple, that wouldn't be as impactful as it was. But because you know what's coming, you know there's violence coming, and he says that, and then you're like framing every interaction around that. Like I think they're genuinely kind of like trying to push these people away. They're like, let's see how dumb these people are. Let's try to push them away while trying to keep them. And so they do something socially awkward. This couple wants to leave. And then they kind of plead for their empathy, and they convince them to stay. It happens multiple times. Something happens, like their daughter winds up sleeping in their bed with them and their son. And the couple's like, we're out of here. And then they forget like her teddy bear, and they go back and they're just like, oh, I'm just so upset you guys would leave and assume that we were doing that. That's a bad thing. And the mom of this, James McAvoy's wife, then she starts getting emotional, and she said, I'm sorry, I'm so protective, but we lost our other child, and I just get so protective. And your girl was crying, and you didn't hear it. And they just, it's so crazy. And you go, maybe it's 85% of the movie just with this social tension, social discomfort. That's what it is. And, James McAvoy's doing stuff that is making you laugh. There's one point where the husband and wife are in their room having a really vulnerable conversation, and they end up hugging. And most of the time in their room, it's a pretty small room, and the perspective is from, there's like, if there's a square, it's kind of in the corner looking across the bed, and the entrance door is on the other side of the bed. And the door's closed. It has a window with kind of a fogginess to it. And they're having this vulnerable conversation, and it's changing perspectives, and it's going to their faces and whatever. But then they kind of are hugging. And I don't know when it started. And you just like pop your eye over to the window and the door, and James McAvoy is just staring at them, and then he leaves. And I was like, whoa, I didn't even see him. Like, how long was he staring through the window there? And then that made me wonder, were there other things like that I missed through this whole movie? Were there other times that James McAvoy or his wife are like staring or like in the background and you don't even know it? Like, it really created this really like looking over your shoulder feeling, like who's there, what's there. And then eventually they get to the kind of conflict, and again, it's pretty violent. Both of these movies are pretty violent. This one, I know I said earlier, I don't really love just human on human horror violence. However, you're also at the point of this thing where you really want this main couple to win. You find out that James McAvoy and his wife's son is not their son. It turns out to be like a kidnapped kid from a previous family. I'll put spoilers in the intro, that they kept when they killed a different family, that they did this exact same bait and murder thing. And, they're getting to the end, and they're just like, oh, we're going to go. And then there's the flat tire. And this is a crazy part of the movie. James McAvoy's like, come on, Ben, let's go fix that in my shed. And they go in, and there's all these like really scary looking tools, and then they fix the patch. They put it back on. And then the daughter's teddy bear is like in a gutter, like on this building, like 2 stories up. It's like, oh, how to get up there? And then James McAvoy was like, don't worry, Ben, here, let me get the ladder. I'll hold the ladder for you. And you're like, oh, is he just going to like slam the ladder out and just make him totally like, when's this violence going to start? It's going to come. And then it doesn't. He climbs down with the teddy bear, gives it to his daughter. And then they're just like about to, and then they're hugging each other, and then James McAvoy starts kissing the neck of the wife, and they've had some like infidelity issues in their marriage. And you're just like, holy, like how far are they getting here? And then they start driving away, and James McAvoy's son can't swim. And then he pushes them into this like pond of water near the exit. And so then the husband hops out, saves the kid. By the time he saves the kid, James McAvoy has a gun, and they're like holding the wife and daughter hostage. And you're like, all right, this is starting. And you're like, now how do they get out of it? And then basically, like, because they had some foresight, like okay, this is another crazy thing, is in Speak No Evil, the wife is the boss. Not like the boss of the relationship, but is the one who ends up like just like getting them out of the situation at the end of the day. Like she like gets a knife, puts it in her thing, and they don't find it on her when they're holding them hostage. And so she slices James McAvoy's face, and it was like a handheld, like a not X-Acto knife, yeah, X-Acto knife that I think you squeeze or you slide this like slider, and the blade comes out like that far. So she slices his face with it, and then they kind of get out of the situation. And earlier in the movie, they said, we're gonna take you to this awesome place, like right on the ocean, fresh seafood, and it's just them, the two couples, and the dude running it, and it's like farm to table. And this is something James McAvoy says when they actually kidnap them, because this other couple are really environmental. They own an electric car. She doesn't eat meat, I think out of like moral compulsion than health. And what's so funny is they cook this like goose, and he like forces her. He's like, you have to eat this. You have to eat this. This is the best part. And she like lets him put it in her mouth, like it breaks her or whatever. And there's like this point when they've kidnapped them and they're going to kill them. And James McAvoy's like, you people with your environmentally friendly cars and your single line caught tuna, like you couldn't even like save yourselves. You had to come back and save this kid when you knew what was going to happen. And this is where it's like this culmination of that line earlier. Like, it's not about the kill, it's about the hunt. That it was like so amazingly well done. And then again, the wife is the one who like slices his face. They get out, get into the house. The dude from that farm to table restaurant they went to right on the ocean shows up, is on James McAvoy's side. And then they're just trying to basically kill each other. And, the wife is the one who kills the guy from the farm to table restaurant. And then the wife is the one who kills the other wife, the evil wife. And then you're going through, at one point she sprays like highly corrosive drain cleaner in James McAvoy's eyes to get away from him. And then what happened? At some point the daughter grabbed a syringe of drugs that they were going to use on her. And he was trying to hold her hostage to like get one over on them. And this is like really gross. He was like, you killed my wife. That's too bad. Well, I'm just going to make sure your daughters are going to take care of me. Like, basically, I'm going to kidnap. She's like 12 or 13. I'm going to kidnap her to like be my wife. Awful. And then the daughter like jams a syringe into his abdomen and he gets paralyzed. And you're like, whoa, they're finally done. They're just going to leave him there. They start like going away. And the son is still alive. The son has made it through all this. And they're like, we're going to protect the son. And then he just like, it's really crazy. And they like cut out his tongue before the movie. Like, they're like, he's got a disorder. He can't really talk or make like different, like he has a hard time talking, but it's because they cut his tongue out so he can't tell people that he's kidnapped. It's awful, awful, awful. And then James McAvoy is like on the ground, paralyzed, and he's still just like making snide comments. And the boy's son's name is Ant, and he's like standing over him. And James McAvoy makes some comment, and Ant gets down on his knees and he grabs a brick. And James McAvoy, this is something I kind of love when there's these characters who are just so twisted to their core. And James McAvoy says, that's my boy, Ant. And Ant starts smashing his face with this brick and kills him, starts screaming. And, you know, the other couple are just like standing there. Like, what are you going to do? Like, these dudes killed his whole family, kidnapped him. Who knows what they did to him? And then they get in their car, they're driving away. And the last scene is just them like in their car. And the daughter gives her teddy bear, which is like a real security measure. Like through the whole movie, it was this kind of point of conflict with her dad. Like, she's got to get over that thing. At the end of the movie, she just like passes it over to him. And that's it. And I was like, and again, here's the thing. Acting, amazing. Production quality, amazing. Conflict resolution, just so amazing. I think if they had started it earlier in the movie, it was just like how long the lead up to the conflict fulfilling. It took so long that you were just like waiting. You have all this pent up social discomfort energy. How is this going to play out? Are they going to get out of here? Like, what's going to happen? And then it just like was super, super well executed. James McAvoy, I think, is honestly, I know he's highly regarded, but I also think he's kind of an underrated actor. And for him to take this role, I think was like really admirable because it's probably horror thriller, you know, I would say more thriller probably. And he played his character so well. He was just so socially discomforting. And then you kind of find out it's just all an act. It's just trying to like mess with people and see like what he can do to like still reel them in on. Like, it was so interesting. And yeah, and basically, so what they do is they like lure people and then they make them transfer them all the money they have and then they kill them. And it's just so, I think what's like so discomforting too is they get to the point where he's making them transfer the money before she slices his face and they kind of get away a little bit. It is like, it's one of those moments because there's times where you think like it's impossible to commit a major crime because it's too easy to commit. Not that I want to commit any major crimes or anything like that, but it's impossible to. And then you see a movie like this and you're like, oh, is it actually like kind of easy? Like, how are they making it look so easy? And what's scary, I don't think it's, what the scary thing is like, what if that happened to me? That's what really freaks you out about this is like, what if this happened to me or our family, is we get caught in this situation. I can tell you this, probably makes me distrust people I don't know to a much greater degree than I would have otherwise. So super enjoyable, great movie, great summer for movies. Deadpool was great. Alien Romulus was great. Speak No Evil was great. There were some movies that were not great. We're here in October. Joker apparently is not great. But hey, when there's great movies, I'm going to see them. I might see them multiple times. And I mean, hey, it was kind of cool. Like, even though I don't love like horror movies, I'll still give horror, thriller an opportunity occasionally. I think what's important is like production there and a story there. And if they're both there, I'll consider it. Although there's other movies I haven't seen because I heard they're just too scary. I don't love being scared for the point of being scared, but I just love, what do I love? I love being entertained, but that's too simple. I love feeling my emotions being kind of moved. I don't want to say like manipulated. I don't want to say controlled because that's not the case, but I like having my emotions kind of moved in new things. I love my imagination being challenged to consider new possibilities. And with sci-fi, you have the possibilities of like other worlds that could sustain life. And with horror thriller, you have the possibility that there's a couple out there that could murder you and take all your money. And I guess hopefully neither of those are super realistic, and hopefully neither of those are like really that possible to happen. But what's kind of enjoyable is just like imagining something new, even for a little while. And what's also really enjoyable is seeing actors do something outside of their normal wheelhouse and do it really well. That's very enjoyable. So I would say Speak No Evil, I'd probably put like 8 out of 10, maybe 9 out of 10. Honestly, it was such an enjoyable like movie viewing experience. It was so good. James McAvoy is great. I mean, even the kids actings were really good too. Super, super good. So definitely recommend. Maybe not on the same night, but definitely check them out. They were super good. So that's my movies experience with like horror movies this summer. I don't really watch a lot of horror, but these were both really enjoyable. So anyway, people, thanks for checking it out. Let me know if you watched the movies or if you've already seen them. Let me know what you thought, and maybe you hated them, or maybe they're not as high. Maybe they're 10 out of 10 for you. Let me know, people. All right. Love you. Peace.